How are they on there?
They basically just
No,
talk
you
Old
were on
Testament
there.
kind of.
Am I
Yeah,
being
the
recorded
shirts,
right
yeah.
now?
Sweet.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't start it already.
Yeah.
We're
Ready to
live.
go.
You working tonight?
Yeah, right after this.
I was wondering where you had your gear on.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to
Sleep all
this
day.
week's discussion of the discussion. BEMA episode 22 under the Chuppah.
Gotta put your
You listen?
into it.
Yeah. Hoopah, hoopah, hoopity-doo.
No,
You'll
it's-
see. It's.
But I am
it's
very,
just
but I am very impressed that you started at 8 o'clock sharp.
So lame.
Yeah. Do our best to get going because
just takes a while.
what time did we leave last week?
We left after 10.
10:45.
Yeah, like
almost
that.
about 11.
It was a good
That was
session.
not normal.
That was a good
No,
session.
it wasn't
though.
normal.
That
but-
was not normal.
Yeah, it was good. This week's discussion covered Exodus 19 through 23. It's more like they just talk about something else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it goes in depth to the idea of getting married to God, I guess. I don't know. I enjoy it.
Can you recap it?
I enjoyed it the first time I listened to it.
Can you recap it?
The first time
For
I
people
didn't
that are
listen
new.
on it. Recap everything
Just
so far.
just basically an idea of what they
Genesis
talk about
till
this
now.
week.
Yeah.
This
Everything we
this week
studied.
only.
Yeah, so this week he discusses how the Israelites get to Mount Sinai, and then it's basically a wedding ceremony. And under the chuppah
Hoopah?
is the little building that people get married in. If you watch The Chosen, you've seen one on there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Such a good show.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, my wife and I were watching it, and I was like, babe, I should get on Group Me and be like, yo, y'all seen this show?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea you guys hadn't seen it. I was like, why is Chris so excited?
Because Ronnie like
I was
asks
like, oh.
every time he mentions it, he's like, have you seen this show?
You're like,
no, I haven't seen
I felt that.
it. Now I can't wait till season 2.
Mm-hmm.
So in ancient Eastern weddings, the betrothal takes place first, where they go to the bride-to-be's house and basically propose. But what's cool is that he talked about how they use the cup of the covenant, and it's like when Jesus like says it, you know, he says, "This is the cup of my covenant. If you drink it, whatever,
Right.
you know." And then when the girl says yes to the betrothal, then he leaves to go build a room in his father's house. It's just cool. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you think about everything you know about Jesus that's coming later, and you can look back on this, and it's like, man, this is like where it started.
Mm-hmm.
It's the beginning. What's cool to me, though, is how he talks about they don't know when they're coming back.
Yeah.
You know, the bride doesn't know when he's coming back to get her.
Mm-hmm.
Neither does the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of I'm thinking about in The Chosen. He mentions it at some point in time. I can't remember when. But you know, everybody always thinks, oh, Jesus is coming back. He's going to come back like a thief in the night. But so does death. So, you know, any minute you could be dead and see Jesus. Either way, it works out in my mind.
Yeah.
So then after he builds it and comes back, then the bride is consecrated with a ceremonial cleansing, like baptism. And then the shofar is sounded. And then they gather under the chuppah. And there's a presentation of the ketubah.
That's a funny word, isn't it?
And then the consummation of the wedding, which is crazy because somebody has to like bear witness to it. And it's usually the best man.
Yep.
Like in old king shows, they do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like after they get married, but they like go in there
Yeah.
with them. I'm like, oh man, that's so weird. Like,
We're just so weird about all that stuff in our culture.
yeah, weird about privacy, right?
Well, we're definitely much more private people than they were.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
Yeah.
And then they have exchange of wedding gifts, and then the honeymoon year in Deuteronomy 24:5 to get to know each other. It's crazy that they get married, consummate the marriage, and then get to know each other.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. We don't understand. I don't get it, but
Yeah.
you know, okay. Yeah.
But it says in Deuteronomy 24:5, it says, if a man has recently married, he must not be sent to war or have any other duty laid on him. For 1 year he is to be free to stay at home and bring happiness to the wife he has married. And I was thinking how, when there's somebody that Jesus called, and he was like, I just got married or something,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So,
Yeah.
if you don't know this,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, so what? You got married.
Right.
Big deal.
But isn't it interesting though that what did Jesus say to the guy? Jesus didn't say, "Oh yeah, you go ahead." Jesus was like, "No, let's go."
Mm-hmm.
So that makes me think about. I'm like, how does this? I don't get it.
There's nothing more important.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so different. So basically, like what I took from it, and at first when he talked about how, because in the beginning of it he said, "There's not one place you can read all this stuff." He goes, "I've just gathered it over all these." So part of me went, "Okay, so you don't have a clear or whatever. This is just different things put together." But the more he went through it, I was like, "Well, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. That makes sense." Because he went through how, well, they were at Sinai, they were at the mountain. The Ten Commandments was like, what is the word you used?
The
Shofar.
ketubah? Or
Yeah.
the shofar is like
Blowing of the
the
horn.
yeah,
The
the horn
announcement.
they blow, but
The
the
blow-
ketubah is
The announcement of
Is
the
the sort of well, the Ten Commandments
Yeah.
is what it was. So the Ten Commandments was something compared to the ketubah or whatever
Yeah,
it's
wedding
called,
vows.
where he would say, "This is what our family's going to be like,"
Yeah.
and she would have been agree or not agree, right? And then the whole thing. So I just say some of that so you know kind of what the whole point is. It's almost like the following of Israel after God at Mount Sinai is very similar to a wedding ceremony in that culture. But I mean, at first I was a little skeptical, but then the more he went through, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I can see all that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I
It's a very
love it's
Eastern
all
way
in the
of
book somewhere to
looking
tell us
at it.
clearly, huh?
It's just a very Eastern way of looking at it, and we have no idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yet-
But I like it
Eastern.
a lot because it makes me think instead of us just looking at even reading Christians as this is my religion and it's what I do, like looking at it as a marriage,
Yeah.
because that's super different than I just go to church on Sundays and whatever. It's like I'm married to him,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I really like that.
Being that it's a marriage, like you were saying, this Christian walk parallel to marriage means that there's a commitment to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no backing out.
Right.
There's this, like we talked last week about a totality. So this idea of giving yourself to Christ is giving your totality
Mm-hmm.
and being fully committed. And I think sometimes today we don't really understand what it means to be fully committed to anything, because we've always given. I know when I'm making an option financially or something, I'm looking for an option. So if this doesn't go the way I want, then I need an option out.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when we're walking with Christ, there are no options. There's no plan B.
Right.
You know? And so the idea of this being a marriage is just, I think, perfect.
But I wonder if some of that's hard for us too, because in our culture, marriage is not even that big of a.
Not a big deal.
I can get out of it if I want to.
I have 3, 4, 5 in life. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Well, that's
That's
it.
sad, but
Yeah.
people do think that way.
Well, and I mean, that's how Christ looked at the church. I mean, and here's Revelations 19. Let us rejoice and be glad and give glory to him, for the wedding of the Lamb has come. His bride has made herself ready.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and how much of Jesus' understanding of knowing all the Old Testament, his culture, he was at the right place at the right time, and he used the same descriptions to announce God's kingdom in the same way that God was announcing when the Israelites came out of Egypt, that this is a wedding, this is a marriage, this is my bride, and but you know, in any relationship, there's faithfulness on both sides. You know, God will always be faithful. Not only that, he puts his life on the line to be faithful for us, even when we're unfaithful, because we're the ones that always fail.
Right.
And he's aware of that, and he was willing to take the risk for that. But, even there, that's one of the things one of the lessons that I learned from Marty today was how my perspective of even the 10 Commandments was incorrect. It's not the 10 Commandments, it's the 10 sayings, and that it's wedding vows.
Yeah.
And it's God's professing his love to his people, saying, if we're going to be married, it's just going to be the two of us. We're in this together. This is how we're going to present ourselves. There won't be anybody else involved, outside of us. There's no other gods. I'm the only God. And so there was a lot of that love language that I never looked at the 10 Commandments. Instead of just looking at do's and don'ts, it was God's way of saying, I'm in love with you, and these are the things that we need to have in our marriage in order to have the right type of relationship together. So it was a new perspective of it.
Yeah, that was eye-opening the first time I listened to this lesson.
What's interesting, I know we're going to come to it, is that these being wedding vows, when we think about do's and don'ts, when we reverse it to the idea of wedding vows, this is God saying these things to us.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to put anybody else before us.
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to take us in vain.
Yeah.
He allowed us to rest. He wants to spend time with us. He's not going to kill us. He's going to honor us. So it's interesting. I know we look at this as what we're supposed to do and don't, but this is all God telling what he's going to do for us.
Mm-hmm.
After everything he has already done, here's some more I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm. These are like guarantees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it definitely, I don't think it changes the truth for me, but it gives me a new perspective and a new appreciation. And I mean, when we think about this walk with Christ as this marriage thing, imagine what it does for you in thinking that now this is different. So now I'm going to appreciate and approach it differently.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was interesting. When he went through it, then I thought, what if this is God telling us what he's going to do? Because the vows are, we've done weddings, so we know they take the same vow. So if I'm taking this vow, then God's taking this vow as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how deep theological that is, but it's just a new perspective,
Yeah.
of that 10 Commandments.
I have a little bit of a hard time, not with the concept, but with the almost the removing of.
Yeah.
Well, it's not commands. It's not whatever. Because I've always grown up with 10 commandments.
Yeah.
Commandments, and but some of it.
I
Huh?
command you to do it.
Yeah, it's like
You
these
better.
are commands. But then too, I think about like with us because I'm thinking, how does this translate? Because we're not Jewish.
No.
I'm not Jewish. I'm not, and it's funny because I know I appreciate they say Abraham and whatever. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'm not Jewish. I'm not gonna whatever. Plus I'll forget anyway.
Moshe.
Yeah.
Paro.
Well, yeah, because I'm like, what is he talking about? He talked. Oh, Isaac. I had to think what he
Isaac.
talking about.
Isaac.
But then I had to think, how does this translate to Christianity, like us following Jesus? Because I know it does. It's very clear that those people are just basically a physical form of us now. Where I've heard the phrase, we're the spiritual Israel,
Yeah.
right? But then I think, so how does this stuff all like? There wasn't 10 things that Jesus gave, or is the Beatitudes like the Jesus? I don't know, but I just think about that. How does it translate, carry forward to now, right? Because if I'm going to look at it like these are the things, I'm like, well, I better start keeping the Sabbath because I don't, and so I'm like, oh, what is this?
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, go ahead.
I just think about, how it being the wedding vows, and if Christ were to fulfill all of that, would be, he's saying, I'm going to be faithful and I'm going to carry this out. I ask you to be faithful, but when you fail, I'm going to lay down my life so that you're still clean and holy. That's how I'm going to fulfill the law, is I lay down my life when you fail.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the way I look at them now. I just kind of changed my perspective of it. But, when it talks about Christ fulfilled the law, if you follow me and you're doing, that laws have been fulfilled. They're completed.
Mm-hmm.
Even the part that has failed fulfilled because I stepped in the gap and I took on that responsibility.
Yeah.
So
So a lot of deep thoughts.
Yeah.
I was going to say, prior to this teaching, I always thought about if the love of God is in me, because God commanded us to love God, and then you'll love people. That if the love of God is in me, then it kind of does away with the 10 Commandments. In that, because the love of God is in me, I love people. Because I love Ray, I'm not going to try and kill him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to take anything that belongs to him. And when I'm with him, we're going to spend time together. My focus is going to be on him. So the idea that if the love of God is in me, then it does away with the 10 Commandments as a command, whereas it is a response in love. Now, viewing this in the idea that it's wedding vows, it strengthens that idea. These are about love and a response of love. If I love somebody, I'm not going to try and kill them. I'm not going to steal from them. I'm not going to want what they want. What that means, I'm going to rejoice when they find something they've been looking to achieve. And if you go through all that life, it's just a response of love.
Yeah. Yeah, that brings us to when they talk about treasured possession in Exodus 19, 5-6. And God says to them, "Now if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all the nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. So then they were talking about how treasured possession in the Hebrew is exclusive to wedding talk. And you think about, your wife being your treasured possession.
Yeah.
When you fall in love and you get proposed and you get married, there's no badness there yet, because it's all new and fresh and you're getting married. So I just imagine how excited God is in this moment. He's got these people. I saved you out of Egypt. Do you want to marry me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time, and I can't remember if he, because this one seems short today, but I can't remember if he talked about it or not. And I think he did. But it always makes me just think about that verse. You're a chosen race, a royal priesthood.
Mama was calling.
Yeah.
But it says you're a people for his own possession. And then there's somewhere else where it says you're his masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
Masterpiece, I think it says. Somewhere in Timothy, I think. Yeah, I could be wrong about where it is.
Some of his workmanship of it.
Yeah. His workmanship. So that's what I love that. It's just basically taking, because when it says a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people belonging to God, which is the NIV version, that you may claim that it's literally the same thing. They were a chosen race. He chose them. He chose Abraham. He chose them. They're a royal nation. They belong to him. They're a kingdom of priests, which he talks about in the Old Testament. So this one helped me. That helped me a lot with the bring it forward part to us. That whatever he said about them is what he says about us. When he talks about this in Peter, 1 Peter, in 1 Peter chapter, I forget what it is, but in verse 9, he talks. I know I can't. I have to look at it.
It just cracks me up because I have to do it.
I need to give me some bifocals, but I just love that he is saying the same thing to us. We are that chosen people, that royal priesthood, the holy possession belonging to God. Right? I think that's very encouraging, because sometimes with this Old Testament stuff and go, man, I don't really whatever. But when I read it, it's so clearly the same thing. He's like, y'all are my people now, right? Even though you're not Jewish, you're my people. I think that's super encouraging.
Yeah.
It's super encouraging because he chose us.
Yeah.
If I was him, I would have not chosen me.
No.
Yeah.
I love how they go to Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 2. And it says, "I remember the devotion of your youth, how as a bride you loved me and followed me through the wilderness, through a land not sown." Because we look at them wandering through the desert for 40 years as just strictly punishment. But, to God, it's I remember when we walked together. How much, how we spent time together. It was fun. But, we always don't. Human nature, I guess, is we're looking at the negative all the time.
Yeah.
He sent snakes to kill people, or all these other things, and it's just it's all we focus on is these bad things. But God's I remember when we walked together.
Yeah.
We just hung out in the wilderness, and you loved me. And then in John chapter 14, he talks about, my Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you with me, that you also may be where I am. And so that's going back to the groom leaving and preparing a house or a room in his Father's house. There's just so much there. I don't know. It's hard to like.
Well, to me, everything that Jesus did was a retelling of what he was reminding the Jews who were to be first in receiving the kingdom. He was reminding them of who their God was. Mm-hmm. And everything he was doing, everything he said, everything was a repeat of everything from the Old Testament, reminding you guys, this is who we're supposed to be. This is where we're at. This is where we're supposed to go. And then we got included as Gentiles. Also, we were grafted in. But the whole point is the audience that Jesus is originally speaking to, he's retelling them everything that basically God had already told them. Mm-hmm. And in a way that he's like, God's still in love with you guys. He hasn't abandoned you. He's still here with you. And, you know, this is what he wants from us. And so that's, you know, and I guess that's, you know, why he was, you know, Christ kept talking about, you know, this is going to be my bride. This is, you know, he had that same wedding talk and a lot of it. And trying to remind them of what had already been said, though.
Yeah, I remember when you were talking about having a hard time because it's the commandments, mm-hmm. you know? And I think about how Jesus came to tell the Jewish people, like, these commandments are based on love. You know, it's not like when they wanted to stone the woman, and he's like, well, you gotta, you know, kill your sin too, so mm-hmm. let me start writing it down. Yeah. You know, he wasn't like what is it called? Like forcing it, like a police officer, you know, enforcing the law. Mm-hmm. He was like telling them, like, no, you got it wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, you follow the law to the letter, but your heart is over there. You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I like how they go back through. Well, they kind of did it in the podcast episode, but it was more in the show notes. And how, for the Jews, the betrothal was with Abraham when he leaves his father's house. And then the groom leaves to repair the house, and that was their time in Egypt. Like, God's preparing the house mm-hmm. while they're in Egypt. And then the arrival of the bridegroom is the story of the Passover. And then the bride consecrated, God tells Moses to consecrate Israel. And then while they're there in the desert, a literal shofar is sounded. And then they gather under the Chuppah, which is a cloud covering the mountain. And then the presentation of the ketubah, which is the Ten Commandments. Consummation of the wedding, which is the tabernacle. An exchange of wedding gifts, the law is given to them. And then the honeymoon year is their time in the wilderness. And I like how, while Moses is up on the mountain getting the Ten Commandments, they're cheating on him. Yeah. And they're like, this is like the bride is cheating on her husband-to-be at the wedding with this golden calf. Like, how irritating would that be?
And that's just the signature of Israel. The moment the authority turns their back, they're back into their old ways. You know, but then again, that you know, that's related to us, man. We think we're gonna follow God. We're gonna be, but as soon as something bad happens, this is just God just being mean to me, and so I'm just gonna go back to doing what I was doing. Mm-hmm. You know, when times get tough, we have a tendency to go back to the thing we knew. Yeah. And so that's just atypical. You know?
Yeah, it just makes me think about the thing I read. I can't remember where it was now recently, but just talking about just our always being aware of the presence of God.
Yeah.
And that whole thing with them making the calf is crazy to me. Because if you go and read Exodus, I forget where, the elders and Aaron had just gone up and ate with God. They had just eaten with God. It says they ate with him, they saw him, and they didn't die. And I don't know if that means they actually saw him or not, but that's what it says.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It talks about him having like the blue thing under his feet, like lapis lazuli and all this.
Yeah.
And it says they had just, and this was within 40 days. I'm like, if I just saw that, I'm not making any crazy whatever. I'm like, dude, you literally just had dinner with God
Mm-hmm.
a month and a half ago,
Yeah.
or less, and here you are doing this. But it's easy to be judgmental, I think. But again, I haven't seen God, so I feel like I would be different. Maybe I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Probably I wouldn't. But I do think that I feel like what happens is when I'm not aware of the presence of God, that's when I get in trouble. That's when I'm like, I could do whatever. It isn't, not that it doesn't matter, but I don't think about it.
Yeah.
Versus if I'm very aware of the presence of God, I tend to act very different.
Yeah.
And so it makes me just think, and maybe there is the in-between phase, the tabernacle wasn't there yet, whatever. But I just think I need to always be aware of the presence of God, because that helps me to stay away from sin or doing my own thing or whatever. But I mean, they would have still seen the clouds on the mountains. So I don't get it, but
Yeah, because it even talks about them here, and they heard the thunder and they saw the lightning.
yeah, I'd have been scared.
And then you still
Made a clap, yeah.
still made a calf.
Yeah, I remember studying that out and why they made a golden calf. And I think from what I found, it's like Moses was gone. They didn't know he was coming back or not.
Right.
And in Egypt, the golden bull or calf or whatever was a go-between between a god and the people. So basically they were just building another Moses out of, for themselves. Because who knows, Moses went up his mountain, we don't know if he's coming back.
Yeah.
There's this big cloud on there.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen, so.
I don't know.
So that go back to the idea of learning to trust, because they still hadn't learned to trust him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's that, okay, God, where's the sign? Where's this thing I've been waiting on? Well, maybe God's waiting for me to do my part. So let me do my part, make this calf. And I think there's a fine line between trusting God and doing your part.
Mm-hmm.
So you need the wisdom of God to know the difference. And like you said, if we're aware of His presence, then His Spirit can show us the difference.
Right.
But our human mind is always looking for an action I need to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes that to do is to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just a wait.
Yeah.
I was looking the same thing up.
I do love what it says in there. It's like Aaron goes, we put these in and out came this calf.
It just
I'm like,
happened.
it just came out. It just showed up. What? That doesn't make sense.
I mean, wouldn't that be some kind of crazy miracle?
What's that?
Put gold in the fire and then a calf comes out?
No.
Can I put a calf in and get gold out?
Hey.
But knowing what the golden calf meant in Egypt would explain why they did what they did. It's like that's what we were looking up, is why did they use the bull? And it basically is one of their gods, which meant the male king.
Yeah.
And so if Moses took off, then we got to make ourselves one.
Mm-hmm.
All I
Make
know
ourselves
is
a
God
good
was
queen.
like, done.
Well, I mean, he wasn't. He still
He still
went along with the wedding ceremony.
He did.
Now, the crazy thing is that Moses does something and he sets a precedent
Yeah.
for the future,
Yeah.
with burning the calf and getting the ashes and then making them drink it. And it goes over to Numbers chapter 5 when a woman is cheating or suspected of adultery. The priest does the same thing in the temple. Like, takes some dust off the ground, puts it in a drink, makes them drink it. If they die, then they were guilty.
That's so strange, isn't it? Just take some dirt, put it in some water, make a drink of that.
Yeah.
You get that in Lubbock a lot.
At least you didn't have to throw a stick in it and make it clean, because it was
Right.
bitter.
Some of these processes, like,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think the one of the things that, not just this, but a lot of the other things that we've read recently, makes me think that maybe we don't take God seriously enough
yeah.
in a lot of things that He says, because He's like, no. I mean, can you imagine if today was like, you're going to drink this, I'm gonna grind it up and you're going to drink it. We'd be like, I'm not going to drink that. Like, but they're like, God's like, no, this is what's happening. And so God was super serious about what he meant. And I think we sometimes, because we live in a culture where we don't have a king, we have presidents that we elect and they work for us, that it's hard for us to sort of grasp that, like, he has all authority over you. And what he says, you can like it or not, but it's what's going to happen.
Yeah, we also have, freedom of speech.
Right.
If we didn't have that, the president could be like, hey, off with your head, don't
That's
like
right.
you. And then we'd be taking stuff more seriously.
Yeah, we would take stuff a lot more seriously. But I think it's just a matter of us really taking God serious. When God says this, I need to really take it seriously, not go, well, God doesn't really mean this or mean that. That's not what he said.
God knows my heart. He understands.
And that's the problem. He does know your heart.
Yeah, that is the problem.
That's not a good thing.
No,
You act like that's going to help you.
those statues of like the
That's
bulls.
actually kind of against you, man.
I forgot which bank it is.
Is it Merrill Lynch?
The Merrill Lynch banks and stuff like that, and how big those are. And me learning about casting and how if they casted the bull, is they had to cut a pit in the ground, form its shape, create two funnels, and basically pour hot molten gold. They had to collect all the gold from everybody around them, because you're talking something that was probably, the size of a regular cow, or a calf at least, would have been 1,000 pounds or more of pure gold. And then I'm thinking, well, gold is $1,800 an ounce, right now. And I'm like,
Yeah, right.
So to them, that was a lot of value in what they were trying to do. And then God just said, I want you to grind it up and drink it.
Yeah.
Because it's worthless.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about that movie, Spinal Tap. Have you ever seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen
Not
it?
in a long
Well,
time.
they have a concert and they want Stonehenge on the stage, and somebody builds it to a small scale. So the Stonehenge is like this big. So I was thinking about that. Like, this is all the gold we had. Well, this is a tiny bull we're worshiping now.
What's cool? What's crazy is where did they get the gold?
From Egypt.
And God gave it to them so
Mhm.
they could bless them. How often do we take God's blessing and turn around and use it
Oh,
For the
all
wrong
time,
reasons?
probably.
Oh, yeah.
for the wrong reasons?
All the time,
But
probably.
yet God still continues to bless us, knowing that our human tendency
Dude,
is to
that
take that.
would change the way we look at a lot of things. If
Oh.
I go, that's pretty powerful, because we go, what do I do with what God gives me? Do I
Yeah.
honor God with it, or I honor whatever else?
Yeah. It changes this idea of what the blessing is, isn't it? And what it's for.
Yeah, that's pretty
Gold
intense.
actually slaughtered.
That's pretty intense.
So I didn't take any notes on the very end of it when they're talking about the Ten Commandments.
I got
Going
it.
through, the first
I got 'em.
commandment being like,
So,
do not cheat on me,
Yeah.
basically.
so the first commandment, he said there was two parts, but he only mentions the one. You shall have no other gods before me. Basically, I'm the God who delivered you from Egypt. I am your husband. And then commandment 2, you shall make no idols, is just have no other lovers.
Yeah, I like that one because
That was,
it's like don't even have pictures
yeah.
of your exes.
No, I'm not married, but I've been around a lot of married men, and they say the worst thing you can do is call your wife another woman's name.
Oh, I bet.
So,
Yeah, I've never done that.
so
That's a TikTok prank right now.
yeah,
To call your wife
someone else's name.
someone other girl's name and film her reaction.
But when you think about the concept
Yeah, it's
of calling
TikTok is just wicked.
God a different name, how many times how often do we call God's name something else?
Mm-hmm.
Our financial security, our jobs, and basically an idol is anything that you look to meet a need that you should believe in God to. So if you're looking, not to go off the rabbit trail, but if you're looking to your job to provide for you, then your God is just your job to
That
become an
lesson
idol.
goes along with that.
So okay,
Something
so
preached about 6 months ago.
3 says, you shall not take the name of the Lord in vain. It says, treat me with respect and do not sully my name. That's interesting too, because I wouldn't take Roddy's name in vain, but I got no problem when I smash my thumb. But it's not just directly saying God's name in that way, but it's also saying, again, God knows my heart. Not taking him seriously.
Yeah.
And not putting him as priority. It's taking him
Right.
in vain.
Well, that's why they wouldn't even
Yeah.
say or write his name.
Well, when they
They didn't
did,
even want to give a chance to take it in vain,
when they did, they had to do this washing before they could write it.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was always cool. 4, keep the Sabbath holy. Basically, keep a date
It
night.
was our date night, yeah.
Set aside a time for me. Honor your father and mother. says, "Trust my provision is enough." That's pretty cool. You shall not murder, which was do not hurt yourself. It's interesting when you kill somebody, you think about hurting them, but it also hurts yourself.
It is yourself.
You shall not commit adultery. Protect your sexuality. You shall not steal. Don't take what's not yours. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Tell the truth about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be honest with yourself.
Yeah. And then you shall not covet. Be satisfied with what we have. Like how it says we have.
Yeah.
You know, so there are a lot of things in there, like in Proverbs, the Proverb 31 woman. There's I forget which of the verse is, but she doesn't pressure him to seek gain, as in she doesn't. Well, the neighbor's got a new car, so she pushes him to go get a new car.
Mm-hmm.
He's satisfied in his work. Why don't you go for this promotion when he doesn't want the promotion? You know, how many times do we try and pressure God to see my side and push towards? So if we're the bride, then the idea is not to try and pressure God into something He has no desire to do.
Well, it's almost like that last one is almost like them getting manna, and then that's not enough.
Yeah. He'll give you meat. Well, we had meat, but this is not the meat. I don't like that meat.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that all those things that he talked about, I kind of was like trying to wrap my head around sort of what he was saying, because I think what's interesting too is God was not just going, okay, you and me, Chris. God was going, me and y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, and so some of that he's saying, you guys, you don't do this to him. You don't do this to him, because he's making this thing with, and that's what Ray and I talked about earlier. Is some of that's tough because it's not all just you; it's y'all.
Yeah.
I know they don't use the word y'all, but it's that concept. You guys do this, and I think that's something that we have to fight against. Even thinking about with the church, I think about this person. Oh, what about how are they? What's going on? But then it's more of a how's the group?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How's the relationships in the group? Not just how's Chris and Ray? How's Kyle and Steven? But how's the group? And it's just a weird way to think, and I can't really. Yeah, I don't really grasp it because we live here, in this me, you, instead of us, it's tough.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the thing that caught me is at the beginning when he started describing how the selection process went. Yeah, I like this girl, but mom and dad and the whole family have a say in it because they want to know how this person is going to reflect the whole family. Now, I come from a huge family, and in a way, we do think like that. As a single guy, I think, how's mom going to like her? And I think she doesn't pay attention to these. So my mom's one of those. She's not going to like anyone I bring home. She says she will, but I know her. If I hear that, then that's it. It's done. I'll just walk away from the situation. But how many times do we think about these situations that we're going after something? We don't think about the effect it has on everyone else. Again, going back to manhood. Every decision I make as a man affects someone else. Do I ever think about that? Or am I still a child and thinking about how I want it?
Right.
And then trying to reason with it and never thinking outside of myself.
Yeah.
As a man, every decision I make, I have to think about outside of myself, the community at large. Yeah. And so that's why we have these 10 wedding vows, because it affects everyone around us.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's really helpful because it's like because of our society, our culture of individual kind of you be you, we think of Christianity that way.
Yeah.
When really it's not meant to be that way. It's meant to be this whole group thing, where the like I'm pretty sure if you look at the Hebrew, those are probably all plural.
Yeah.
Right? When it says you.
Yeah.
It says have no other gods. It means y'all have no other gods. It's plural, and I think that's really helpful because if we can learn how to live that way, that's the reason I think why Jesus says if you do this, people know you're my disciples.
Yeah.
Because it's so different.
Yeah.
When I grew up going to church, it was just whatever. we came to church together. When we left, I did my thing. You did your thing. But what if we were like this, where we're like that, and people come in? There's no way it won't look different.
Yeah.
In fact, it might be weird. They may be like, this is weird. I don't think I want to be part of this or not. But just learning, and I don't know. I still don't know how we get there, but it's powerful. You know, it changes the whole way of looking at it.
Yeah, it makes me question my lifestyle. Anything in my life. Yeah, we come to this church together, and I go off and I do my own thing. I don't realize that my lifestyle can easily affect you guys because, hey, they go to the same church. They hang out together. Where did he learn this? Are you guys picking it up or doing it yourselves?
Do they condone this?
Do they condone that? Do they know?
Right.
So they're saying that. So that means you guys accept it because it's part of your lifestyle. So my lifestyle can hurt and affect you guys. So if I learn to reflect and think about you, then it affects how I live my life.
Yeah, true.
And it's not about hiding who I am, but it's about becoming that I am that I should be.
Right.
If that makes sense. I know it
Become who you should be. Yeah.
I was sitting there thinking about when you were talking about defaning his name or using it in vain. I was thinking on, the Israelites took on God as their husband and took on his last name. So how your spouse, when they take on your last name, if they went around town and just badmouth you the whole time, if Mary went around the town just badmouthing you all that time, how much it would destroy the relationship. Or she went around stealing, or she went around, it would destroy how people viewed you. But if she loved and cared for you, she wouldn't want to do those things because it would hurt you. So in the same way as I was thinking about it was, to look at it as Roddy of God or Roddy of Christ, Chris of Christ, is that we're taking on the last name of God and we're his bride, and that we should respect that in that aspect of it. It's just, it encompasses everything, is that if we love that relationship and we love that person, we wouldn't want to do anything that's going to hurt that relationship or hurt it in any way. And so why would you want to do any of those things? Is because you care about your first love.
Right.
I was thinking of that. I wonder if that's why Jesus never got married. Is because Israel was his bride. So for him to get married, it would have been like
Delayed gratification.
Singling somebody out rather than, I love all of you, I'm here for all of you,
Yeah.
And then as far as like the we thing, or the you all thing, like I keep thinking about soldiers with shields, and they have to be able to, I'm thinking about the movie 300.
The phalanx.
Yeah, because the guy couldn't lift the shield up, he can't protect the man to his right. And that's what they do, is everybody's protecting everybody else. It's not just your shield protecting you, it's your shield protecting the guy to your right.
Yeah.
We just don't think about, we focus on the army of one style.
That's how we've been taught. Me first, numero uno.
Right. Doesn't it just make you think, if we could just work on this one thing, who knows what would happen, right?
Yep.
I mean, there's a lot to work on, but
It's definitely going to it's making me rethink Proverbs 31. If we're the bride of Christ, then these are characters that I should be implementing. As a single guy, these are characteristics I look for a woman, but if I'm the bride of Christ, these should be my characteristics.
Right. That's
So
interesting thought.
I have to restudy that.
That's interesting
Yeah.
thought. Now I'm going to read that thing.
If you didn't have enough studies,
That's to
I
me.
like that, though. I like that idea.
I think that's it.
I think this one I want to break it down some more when I get home or where I'm at, because this really just changed some. It doesn't change truth for me. It changed perspective, and as a perspective change, there's something deeper in there I can get more of. And I'm one of those. Let's see how deep this tunnel goes.
Found some gold in
Well,
there.
and I wonder if you, I mean, not necessarily just digging into the Old Testament stuff, but even looking at the Bible using bride for the church, right?
Yeah.
The Bible using household and all that for church, and just looking at it in terms of like what would that mean that it's the bride, because I mean that's just it's what it is. And I had two different conversations today. One was with Evan about how we, in a lot of ways, what we did was we took, the Bible has a lot of things that we need to do, a lot of rules. And in a lot of ways, we took those rules, but we took the relationship away from it. It was just like, do this, you're supposed to do this, we're supposed to do this, and there's not a relationship behind it. But if we can put the relationship back along with the obedience of doing everything we're supposed to do, I mean, that's super powerful. Because when it's just about the rules, there's no excitement in that. You're like, I don't want to do that. Nobody can tell me what to do. But if I have this relationship where I'm the bride, it's like, and it's not a bride that you're like, I hate my husband, he's abusive, or he's so mean, he's so whatever. I mean, he's like the best husband you could ever have in the world. And so if you have this relationship with him and you put together the things we're called to do, I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's really beautiful. But the other way, it leads to bitterness and whatever, So
this changes my perspective of this scripture, Ephesians 5:25. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her to make her holy, cleansing her by the word, by the washing of water through the word, and presenting herself as a radiant church. Kind of changes your perspective when you put it into marriage. Like,
we are the bride.
Wow. But he washes them with the word.
Yeah. I think it'd be a little tough because we're all guys.
Yeah.
I'm not the bride.
I'm not in touch with my feminine side. And that's not what it means at all.
No.
A lot of jokes I could make, but we're on camera.
Yeah, it's not. No, and it's not anything like that. But in our culture, even in our society, we do that. We go, well, "That's a girl. I'm not that."
Yeah.
But no, it's not. It's not a girl or whatever. It's the relationship.
Yeah. This is not a gender issue.
Nope.
It's the role and part of the relationship.
Love
very true. Very true.
I think a lot of it goes back to that yada, like God knowing us intimately.
Yeah.
And there's just nothing more intimate than marriage.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That was a word that was talked about a little while back about it means to know. But it's just like knowing. It's almost like an intimate knowing. It's not just I know you. It's like a deeper, much deeper knowing, experiencing life with you or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but
Well, and that's the difference between knowing the word and experiencing the word too. Is we're having an opportunity to be able to experience God's word in a way that I've never dreamed of doing before. I mean, how many times have I read the Old Testament and was like, well, that's just the Old Testament. But now I'm having the opportunity to experience it, think about it, meditate on it, wrestle with it, fight with it, and apply it in a way that I've never dreamed of being able to do before. It's definitely been beautiful.
Yeah, the experience matters. I mean, growing up in a church, I knew of God, but when I experienced it, that changed everything.
right.
And I can't say that without that experience, I don't think my life would have led where it is now.
Right.
Because it changed how I didn't become perfect. I was a dumb teenager, still did dumb teenager things. But it did change how I thought, how I should live my life. And it just kind of just pushed me down this path to where I am today. Even though many times I've messed it up. But that experience is something like that, all that matters. I mean, someone can tell me something negative about Ray. But until I have an experience with Ray, that changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
That's very true.
Yeah.
I do wonder how this is going to help us as we go along and we make disciples. Because it's not something we can go like, okay, we're going to start in Genesis. We're going to go through. I'm going to teach you all this yada and all this stuff. We can't really do that. But I do think it changes the view of everything back to a relationship. Back to a God wanting to bring us into His family. Be a part of Him. So that's something I've thought about too. Is like going forward. How do I it's not that I need to go sit down with everybody and make them listen to the whole 3-year podcast, but I need to help them see like this was God's story all along, and Jesus just carried it on to us, and we're in it now. And I think maybe that's some of it. It's just helping people see like the Old Testament is basically the New Testament is the spiritual telling of the same story.
Yeah.
And it's just the spiritual experience of these people. We're getting to experience in a spiritual way what they experienced in a physical way.
Yeah.
It's just helping people see that it is the same story. And we're a part of it. To me, that's the most encouraging part, is that we're a part of this story.
Yeah.
That, you might have been one of the people who grew up in that time, and you're in the story, but now we're in the story. And I think somehow we think the story ended because we don't have any new Bible chapters or anything.
No new prophecy.
But the story's still going on. The book of, but the story's still going on, and we're in it. So who knows? God may be in 1,000 years telling, back in 2020, this happened or that happened, But we're still part of the story. I think to me, that's one of the most encouraging parts of it all, is that we get to be a part of this ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's like history, right? We don't realize that 2020 will be spoke about decades from now, and we will have lived through it. So but we forget about that in a spiritual way.
2020 will be talked about.
It will be, And if your kids, your
more than
grandkids will ask you about it, and you're like,
that year more than others.
we don't talk about 2020.
It'll be like the same stories about 9/11.
I remember we
World
couldn't
War
go
II.
anywhere.
It'll be that big. Our kids, my kids, well, hey, I was a little kid when that happened, but that was like a big change in the world at that time. And
Yeah.
I can very
a
easily
lot of people
digress
died.
from that.
Well, that's all we got for this week.
Well, then I'll
Join us
Don't
next
forget to
week.
like and share.
Like